Hey guys, Alicia Nightingale here with Gorge Realty Group, Windermere Real Estate, Columbia River Gorge. Sitting here with Nika Kermani. Nika recently is opening a studio in Bingen, Washington that is a creative, collaborative space that I'm really excited to hear about. So Nika, I wanted to hopefully start with what brought you to the Gorge and what you do around here for fun.
Absolutely. So I was actually born and raised here, born in White Salmon. And I just recently moved back a few years ago. After being gone, I went to school in Los Angeles and did dance team. And then I volunteered sort of different places, Israel, the Bahamas, and moved back, took a job at the hospital that I was born at, actually, as a social
adorable.
worker, because I studied psychology and thought I wanted to do something in that realm. And then slowly but surely, I started teaching so many dance classes that I was leaving work early to go teach, or like taking my lunch break to teach a class and then coming back to work sweaty. And eventually it just got to the point where I was like, I think I need to do this full time.
Yeah.
And so now I just live here as a full-time dance and movement instructor / artist / studio owner now. And what do I do for fun? Is it weird to say I work for fun? Like, I really love what I do. And especially now that I'm opening this space, it's the majority of what I do for fun and for work.
Yeah, I definitely have stalked all of your social media and can see it's just so much fun. You can see the energy and the community you've built up around. I wanted to just take a step back though and talk about where that transition happened from, working 9 to 5 or, working at an established corporation type business and then branching into dance and then now into this entrepreneurship. When did you have that aha moment and where did you go first? Where were you teaching first?
That's a great question. So, I have been teaching dance for a really long time. For my senior project in high school, I started a dance team and made up dances and trained some of my, friends. We performed at a basketball game,
fun.
It's always sort of been something I did, might you say, on the side.
Yeah.
And then I officially kind of became a teacher of dance when I got my Zumba certification.
Okay.
And I was 18 and I started teaching Zumba at the gym at USC in LA. And so that was when I got really the experience of leading a group and having a ton of people in class and keeping that energy high. But still it was always something that I was oh, I'm just going to always do this, but it's not going to be my career. I'm half Persian, and I'm just going to say Persian parents are very you should be a doctor or a lawyer. Professional.
Yeah. Are you suiting up, honey?
Yes. They're so love my father, love my Persian side of the family, and they're so supportive now, but it's definitely just an expectation that you do something kind of traditional. And so I also thought I was going to do something traditional. I was very strong academically, so it made sense, might as well be a doctor or something. So for me, that was going to be a doctor of psychology.
Yeah.
But I was I'll always teach dance on the side. Maybe I'll do art and dance therapy. And so that was my thought, but it was always associated with more of a traditional path, if I was going to incorporate it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, let's see, moved to Israel, volunteered at the Baha'i World Center there, taught Zumba for the other volunteers.
Is Zumba still a big thing?
I don't know. I stopped. It's basically pay to keep your certification. I just stopped paying a few years ago because I was I'm making up my own things anyway, and it's a little bit different than Zumba. But I think in some I went to Costa Rica a few years ago and took a Zumba class at a gym there, and it was packed. People love it.
Okay.
And but I do think it's a little antiquated now. They have other programs. They started this thing called Zumba Strong, and then now I've seen ads for just Strong on Instagram. So I think they've dropped the Zumba because they think people associate it with being kind of old school.
Yeah, yeah.
So
dated.
It's dated, right? So anyway, where was I? So anyway, the whole point of this story is basically being I would always do things and I would find myself also teaching dance.
Yeah.
And also I also paint and also painting and but it was just a side thing.
Yeah.
And then I think what really happened was moving back to the Gorge. It was like 2 years ago that I moved back and took that job at Skyline. I was technically a behavioral health specialist. Um, and let's see, how did it come about? I would teach like these series where I would have kids sign up for like 8 weeks, and it would just be pop up, and they'd always be packed, and I would just have so much fun. And I was like, well, if I just scaled this model, like I could make a living off this, you know, I love to do it, and it comes really easily to me. But I didn't have the time to actually do it because I was working. It was actually 8 to 5. So at the hospital 5 days a week. And then I was offered a position on faculty from Columbia Gorge Dance Academy, which is where I was trained essentially as a high schooler. So the same teacher who taught me how to dance hip hop, she was stepping aside. She had some personal things going on in her life, and it just like aligned that I was in the area. So Susan, the director, was like, hey, Nika, do you want to be our on faculty hip hop instructor? So I adopted, you know, a ton of students, which essentially matched my current income from the hospispial.
Oh my gosh.
So I was
special. It's like all stars aligned.
All stars aligned. And I was like, well, okay, that's a no-brainer. I am 100% going to do that. And for a while I was like, okay, I'm going to do both. I'm going to still do, because it's only at the time it was 4 classes a week, and it was like 25 kids per class. So it's like 100 students, you know? So that was my idea. And then I was like, no, like I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to do these 4 classes, and I'm going to do other things too that involve dance and art. And I'm just going to like go for it.
Well, it sounds like that's exactly what the universe was telling you.
Yeah.
What did your dad say?
He's like a logical guy, and like he wants me to be happy. He just wants his kids to be happy. Me and my sister were his two girls. And I think at first he probably was skeptical, but when I like broke down the numbers for him, and I was like, look, like I can support myself with this thing that I'm passionate about, and it's like a service to the community, and I'm like touching all of these kids, you know, like
bringing joy.
Like it's in a lot of ways like improving the mental health of people more than what I'm doing at the hospital, you know?
Yeah.
And so, he's here for it. And then now, like, obviously with the studio, we haven't touched on that yet, but the space was previously his auto body shop.
Yeah.
And so, like, he has to be supportive at this point. Like, he's helping me so much. He's literally, like, giving me his space. I'm renting it from him, but still, like, he could have rented it to an auto body person who would have been able to pay him much more, you know, than I'm going to be able to pay him. So so basically,
you adopted students at Columbia Gorge Dance Academy.
Yes.
And you taught there for a little while.
Yes.
And then did that academy close down?
So, okay. I started there so I taught there a year, and in my first year is when coronavirus happened, right?
Yeah.
So like just this last year. And it closed down as a result, but it's still, now we're back up and running with very small class sizes.
Okay.
So like I will always teach at both my studio and in Hood River, because like some students just simply can't get across the bridge. You know what I mean? And it's, and then my studio Wednesday nights when I teach at the Dance Academy, other people can be teaching.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Perfect. So when did you kind of transition into your own space in Bingen?
Okay, so that came about. How did that exactly come about? It came about recently, and it wasn't super planned out, I would say. It was kind of like I taught at a few different places that did close down as a result of coronavirus. And so we moved outside to teach. And I was like, well, what's going to happen when the weather turns? I'm going to have nowhere to teach the majority of my classes. The Dance Academy is full. Like, not only were they full before coronavirus, but now with half capacity, they're extra full because like we can't even get everyone in.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I need a space, and other people are going to need a space. These studios are closing. So like, might as well just do this. My dad was retiring. It just, like you said, the stars aligned.
Yeah.
And he was looking for someone to rent the space. He had talked to a few different other businesses that were kind of falling through. And I've always wanted my own dance studio and like art space. So it just seemed like the right time to do it. And then it was just a matter of like funding it. So that's where the Kickstarter came in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Perfect. That is like exactly where I wanted to go next.
Yeah.
So tell me about your Kickstarter and how that went and that whole process.
So the Kickstarter was basically the way that the studio is happening, you know, because it takes money to build a space,
Yeah.
to renovate and change an auto body shop into a dance studio. Like
Yeah.
it takes a lot of changes.
Yeah, yeah.
So that was in consultation with Giselle, who is a coworker of mine, and also she's worked on some Kickstarters, and
Yeah.
she's a videographer. So
Yeah.
she was like, you should do a Kickstarter. You can hire me to shoot it, and you can like, it'll help pay for the space. It's not like people are really donating because they're getting something in return. Like they're prepaying for classes. Like we have all, like the way Kickstarter works is this rewards system.
Yeah.
For your pledge amount. And she's like, and I think it would be really successful
Yeah.
on the one hand, but then she's also like, but people are going to ask, like, all of these spaces are closing. Like, why do you think that opening a studio is a good idea?
Yeah.
You know, like, and like, how are you going to support it? And I was like, I don't really have a huge answer to that other than like, don't we want a space to exist when we reemerge from the coronavirus
100%.
vortex? Like if everything's closed, it's just going to be like, where are we going to go?
Yeah. Well, and I really appreciate that it's on that side of the river.
Right.
Because there's so much in Hood River and so many things to do in this area. And there's just not quite enough on the Washington side.
No, people don't invest.